those of us in the Americas and the Caribbean know that we have the indigenous people, the First Nations people blood running through us, and we also have the European people's blood running through us. And all of that brings us to a place of really choosing how to sustain ourselves where we are in the practices. And the beautiful thing about your work, and we'll dive into this, everybody, this is a two-part conversation. So know that today we're dipping our toe in. Tomorrow we're going for a deeper dip. And these practices that you can use to navigate life can come from your ancestors and can come from your modern day life as well. And I think all of it gets traced back to our ancestors. And I really want to give people an understanding of a person who is going through grief. I'm going to talk a little bit about my present experience with it. And then I'm going to read an excerpt from my novel. It's a self-love novel, and the character, so that you all can hear a diverse experience with grief. And so for me during the pandemic, it didn't really occur to me that I was grieving the life that I had. It really didn't hit until 2021 when I had an opportunity to have spent many months working with a therapist and a coach, that I needed to recognize that I'm not only grieving the loss of people that have passed, I'm grieving the loss of my life. And that in that grief, there are stages and there's types of grief. And that's the lovely thing about Laura's books. They help you see, what they give you a language. And for me in healing, I need a language. That's one of my love languages, is words of affirmation. I need to be able to explore that. And so I recognized that I lost people and I lost my life, and that I was angry. I was confused. I was, depressed about it. I just didn't have that awareness. So that's a piece of it. And then the character Karma Francois in my novel, Love's Troubadours, it's a story about an African-American woman who is much like me, and she is going through what a lot of us go through in life, struggling, at different times, and resisting the change that the universe has brought her. And realizing that no matter how hard she tries to control, she doesn't have the control, and she's left with anger, and that is a sign of loss and grief. And we'll talk a little bit about it. And so this is Karma Francois. She's a 30-something African-American woman who has a life as a bohemian Black American princess. She is the daughter of a woman who was modeled after Whitley Gilbert's character on A Different World, who's controlling. She's a twin. She is a museum curator who has lost her job at just because the museum restructured and she got caught in it, but she didn't have a plan B. So she was living a bougie life in New York City. She is in debt now because she cannot pay the credit card bills and the other things. She is in denial about what has happened, and she is dealing with the death of a family member and secrets that she's discovered. And so this is Karma. She's writing in her journal. Who am I? My birth certificate says I am Belle Violette Francois, the daughter of Eugene Jerome Francois and Hyacinth Belle Baptiste Francois. My family and friends say I'm Karma, a nickname my father gave me as a child. When I look in the mirror, I see that I'm a woman with long reddish-brown locks, who sees the world through cocoa eyes. My skin is the color of burnt sugar. The French call it caramel, containing the force of salt and sugar. But who am I really? If I knew, I guess I wouldn't feel like a victim of identity theft. Not the typical kind where someone takes your identity for financial gain. I'm talking about a new and improved kind where life robs you of your hard-earned professional identity and leaves you with nothing more than a pile of ashes and never-ending suffering. Do I sound bitter? You bet your sweet ass I am. My life was supposed to be a certain way. I did everything I was supposed to do. And just when I was about to cash in on all of my hard work, I lost everything. I feel like an IDP, an internally displaced person who has been forced to leave her cosmopolitan life in New York City as a result of a human man-made disaster called termination of employment. I miss my life. I miss it dearly, like a child longs for its mother or a lover mourns the loss of a lover. I do indeed miss my life. I miss who I used to be. So, that is a woman that is grieving. And yeah, that's it's not to be played with, y'all, because it can turn into some other things. And Laura, I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you reflect on what we've been talking about. Your experience, my experience, Karma's experience.
I have to jump in and just ask you, just to remind us all, what year did you write the book?
The book was written over the course of several years. It started in 1997 at the Essence Music Festival, and it was finished in 2007. And it really, the bulk of the work was done right before September 11th. You know, starting in 2001, like the summer of 2001 is when I really got clear about, okay, I'm gonna stick with this. This is now a novel, and I'm writing it, and however long it takes is however long it takes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, I marvel over the fact that we've both used the same word, bitter. So Karma had asked, you know, am I bitter? And I think I've said something along the same lines in Tapestries of Grief, you know, am I bitter? There are emotions that we may feel as that we are not allowed to display, these apparently ugly emotions that are supposed to be suppressed. Nobody wants to see, nobody wants to entertain, but these are necessary emotions. All emotions that we have been given for a reason. They each serve a purpose. Your anger at the loss of a loved one, at the loss of your life, through this transition that has occurred now, through no fault of your own, this circumstance of which you find yourself in. How can you not feel angry? How can you not feel bitter? And where is the inhumane sense of being in that? You know, it's to be accepted. It's to be nurtured. It's to be identified and really explored from as many different positions as possible. The way that society is set is in a way that says, well, okay, so you've lost everything, get it back. Get it back and do so with a smile on your face. You know, you've got no time to feel or to take that time out to process what's happened. And so you find that, you know, the situation that you've spoken of with the grief, and yes, it is still being the pandemic, in a way, we have been given that time to process this grief. And I think as well, moving forward now, more people will be demanding that time, because it is something that demands our time. Gone are the days when we could sweep it under the carpet. Those days have gone now, because this is affecting us on levels that we've not previously been aware of. The emotional, the social, the practical, the physical, and of course the spiritual, which we are now able to give more light to. So this grief thing, it's the experience of these emotions that we have been led to suppress for so long. The mourning is the time in which that happens, and that time of mourning cannot be dictated. It could take 4 months, it could take 4 years, and indeed it could be something that we never get over. And that is life. And that is often how we make our decisions and move forward on this journey. Yep. I get very passionate, and I forget questions.
No, it's, I want to say thank you for your passion. And also I want to just share a comment that King Kemet, one of my sorority sisters based in Toronto, tremendous spirit and artist and activist. King Kemet says, this makes me think that bitter is a natural force that vegetation produces for self-preservation.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Yes. I've had it said a few years ago, and I never let it go. It always stuck in my mind. Mm-hmm. The bitter is where the goodness is.
Wow.
The bitter is where we find our growth. Mm-hmm. The bitter is where the essence is. We are seduced by the sweetness, and we expect everything to be nice and sweet and easy and just go with the flow. But without the bitter, without that which we may perceive as darkness, how do we appreciate that which delights our senses and our taste buds? I love cake, but we need the bitter.
Preach. Tell us about one of the things that I loved last week while exploring your books is this idea that grief is an energy and it's a natural process. And I never heard that before. That it's an energy and it's a natural process. I heard it's a part of life, but I didn't hear that it was an energy and a natural process. And it's something that we have to understand and something that we have to respect. It's like, I love your use of language. And so talk to us about grief as an energy and as a natural process, something that we should understand. What is understanding and what is respecting grief? And I know that's a lot, but it is what it is.
All right. I'll probably go for another passionate tandem. But
do it. Tandem on, baby. Tandem on. It's the day of tandem.
Okay. Well, if I was to start off with the overstanding and understanding, if I start there, then I think it would flow on to the emotions and the energy of grief. Because I explain in the book that when we understand, we stand under somebody else's authority. And so in society, there are ways in which you grieve. Typically in the UK, it's been very much a case of a stiff upper lip. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Nothing's wrong with me. Crying. I'm not crying. Do I look like I'm crying? No. Strong black woman. Haven't got time to cry. It's very much like that. But when you stand in your own authority, when you recognize what grief is, and I know we're going to be speaking about the grief wheel tomorrow, when you identify where you are in your grief, you can take authority over your own journey and govern the direction that it takes, as opposed to being told, oh, you're grieving, go to the doctors, get some antidepressants or tablets that will stifle the effects of the grief that can be misconstrued, misdiagnosed as an illness that may not actually be there. So when we overstand our grief, we take authority, we stand up in our grief, and we decide what direction we take and for how long. And again, you know, when I come back to the whole period of mourning, which in the UK is very much like dictated. Mm-hmm. Haven't you got over it yet? Mm-hmm. Flipping heck, it's been gone a couple of months now. Why are you still crying? When you overstand grief, then you will move forward in a way that works for you primarily and not for others, recognizing that you are at the center. And so when I'm working with my clients, I ask them to just close their eyes and to just do a little scan of the body from top to bottom. And then I ask them, where is your grief? Where does it sit? And so I see that you've got your eyes closed now, Ananda. Mm-hmm. Can you locate your grief?
Yeah, it's in between my heart and my gut, my sacral, my it's like in the heart chakra, it's in the solar plexus, and it's in the sacral.
Okay. And is it all one energy? Or would you say that it's three different energies that are within your system at this time?
It feels like it's more like it's, you know how you have one of those ladders that are the rulers that you can change, the sliding ruler, and it slides between these areas. And so,
okay.
Yeah, it slides up and down depending on how it gets triggered.
Okay, so it's moving. Mm-hmm. Okay, and as it moves, does it make a sound? Is there a noise?
It's just like,
Okay, and is there a color attached to it?
It's black.
Okay. And just keep breathing. This is your grief. This is an energy. And if I was to ask you, can you change that blackness to grey in your own time? Is it willing to change?
Yeah, it wants to be more than what it is. So yes.
Okay. And do you have a favourite colour?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
It's pink.
And can you see if that energy of grief that sits within you around the solar plexus, just under the heart, just above the gut, that moves up and down as though it is moving on a ladder? Is it ready to change to the most beautiful emotion of pink?
Yeah, because it has like pink. The ladder has pink on it. It's
okay.
Like the ladder, you know, on the sides, it's like an outline of pink.
Okay.
On it.
Okay. And so what you'll find is that the more you work with this energy of grief that sits around your solar plexus, that moves up and down this ladder, the more you work with this energy, the more likely it is to change, to continue changing. And as time goes on, this energy will get smaller and smaller and smaller. And the sound that it makes will either disappear or change into something more melodious and calmer, and welcoming and loving. And you'll find that the ladder perhaps gets smaller and smaller the more you work on this energy that is called grief. And as you move forward working with this energy, you'll find that there may be other instances that occur or that have occurred in the past that come up to be healed, to be changed to pink. And they will do so when they are ready. And you will be ready for them, because you are actively working with this energy, which is rather much like the energy of happiness, the energy of joy, the energy of love. All energies are there to be worked with for our progression. And it is with overstanding that we govern these energies and move forward. And so, in your own time, open your eyes with a deep breath in and just blow out any remnant of the energy that no longer satisfies, that we no longer need. And we thank it as it goes. And we infuse that energy, that area with pink, pastel pinks, deep pinks, loving and warm pinks. Inhaling pink and exhaling the darkness that is leaving. Thanking it for the work it did. Because it was there to show us, I'm here. I'm here. I am the bitter that is ready to leave. I am the bitter that is helping you to grow. I am the bitter that is moving you forward. I am the bitter that loves you. But I am the bitter that is ready to go, because you are ready to continue growing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I give thanks. The universe always gives you what you need. And I had no idea. Wow. Thank you.
And that's not hypnosis.
No. It's part of you being a Greek therapist. And yeah, we're surrendering to the flow. And what we just witnessed and what I just experienced is overstanding and respecting grief. It's a part of what I now see is this befriending grief. It's a part of self-love, and self-love is not always joyful and pretty and pink. It is messy. It requires vulnerability. It requires getting down in places that you don't want to go, and that are painful, and that you don't know how long you're going to stay. There's no expiration date on it. It just is what it is, and you're walking through, and that's a part of self-love that we don't hear about. Like you said, society wants you to just paint one side to things, the joyful side, and that's a setup for what many of us are experiencing, because we're not socialized and conditioned to even know that it's an energy that is a part of a whole catalog of energies that we have the authority, like Laura said, to embrace and to befriend and to utilize to our highest good, our growth. They're not socialized. And I'm not shaming, society, and I'm not blaming society. I think we all wake up when we're supposed to wake up, when you choose to wake up. And it's a choice. And so how we move forward is what I'm most passionate about in helping people embrace where they are, and doing that with self-love, and allowing that self-love to open up the door to overstand. And I like that, to overstand what they need, and everybody's need is different, and everybody's grief is different. We are in some really beautiful times. Like you said, we've all been given, in most of our lives, and most of us, not all of us, have had some time. I do want to recognize that there are folks that don't have the privilege of the time. And what would you say to people who haven't had the privilege of being at home, during this time, and as they move forward, they're out, they're facing things that many of us are not having to face? How would you recommend that they live with grief as they move in the public, arenas, and they have to deal with a lot more stuff coming at them that may trigger even more?
My initial, or I suppose my go-to remedy is always only ever going to be talk. Talk to everybody, talk to anybody. And I say that because everybody carries a level of grief within them. Through conversation, we not only heal ourselves, but we heal others. Whether people are aware of it, there's always a something that we are dealing with. And yes, we are not given the air that we need to actually take 5 minutes out often and just sit with that. But we can carve out times first thing in the morning, just before you even open your eyes. So there are states, the hypnopompic and the hypnagogic states. Those are the states just before you go to sleep and just before you wake up, where your mind is coming to terms with what's happened during the day or planning for the coming day ahead. And it's about just staying in that space as long as you can, where you're awake, but you're still asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you do awaken, you just take that 5-10 minutes to just be still, to recognize where you are and how you're feeling, to feel it in your body. It's been a long day. You've been on the go all day and you've come home. You've got responsibilities. You've done X amount before you can climb into that bed. But climb into that bed and give yourself that 5-10 minutes. Okay, where is my grief? Where does it sit? What number would I give it? And if you can give it a number in the morning, and if you can give it a number in the evening, that really helps. Where is it? Where does it sit in my body? What color is it? What movement is it making? What is the emotion? If there are tears, let them flow whenever and wherever you can, because that's how our healing, that's the body communicating to us.
Okay.
We grieve for those we love. Sometimes we grieve for those that we don't love. Sometimes we grieve for those we don't know. But those that we grieve for have touched our hearts. They've touched us in a way that nobody else will. So how do you just get up, get your shoes on, go back to work? It doesn't happen like that. Because yes, you are consciously aware of your loss, but your body also has to adapt to this loss. Every cell in your body is tuned to the person that is no longer here in the physical. And so you have to give your body that time to respond to that energy of grief, to learn how to work with it, overstand it, and move forward. It takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether that answers your question.
No, it does. It does, because it's one of the things that I use in my own life, and I use with clients and the members of the Thriving Mindfully Academy, and people who follow me on social media, who read my blog, or even in my books, is, slowing down, and slowing down with the breath, and recognizing that you get 1,440 minutes each and every day, and you have a minute, at least a minute, and what happens, I find, when I take a minute, it always extends itself, and that you get to that 5 minutes quickly. You get to that 10 minutes quickly without even really realizing it. I think our minds, because we're socialized to say we just don't have time, I'm busy, there's so many messages out here. And there's the reality, too, that you just have an outstanding to-do list on any given day. And but we do have the time. We do have the time. We just think that we don't have the time. And in order for us to be anything to anybody in our lives, loving ourselves with that 1 minute that turns into more, and using what Laura has shared, can do wonders for us, because it's deposits into your bank of self-love. Any moment that you can slow yourself down and check in with your body and your breath, noticing what's happening, not trying to do anything about it, just noticing. That noticing is your birthright of mindfulness. That noticing is putting you in a space of having authority in your life. It's an empowering, empowering, because it's giving you power from the inside out. And believe it or not, you'll be able to build on that, and the body will begin to offer you wisdom, because you have gotten still, and the body just needs the body just needs stillness in order to reveal what you need.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, it just needs stillness. You can't receive it if you're always, moving.
On the go. That's it. Mm-hmm. And so you remind me of those words, those wise words from that wise sage. Vanilla Ice. Stop, collaborate and listen. It's simple as that. Just stop, collaborate, take that time and just listen. Mm-hmm. Everything you need is within. Everything we need is in the body. Mm-hmm. And I always say that my body is my communication device. If it wasn't for this body, I couldn't talk to you. I wouldn't be able to reach out and touch you and hold you and squeeze you, So within this body, this communication device, we've been given all the tools that we need. And those tools also are from those past experiences, whether they be good or bad, but we've come along this journey and we've picked up from them as what we've needed. Mm-hmm. And so when you stop, go inside and just listen. Mm-hmm. And as you've seen, you can actually see that energy as well. Mm-hmm. You know what color it is. You mm-hmm. know where it's moving. You mm-hmm. know what it's doing, Yeah. So just listen to the body. The body will tell you everything. We're led to believe that everything is outside of ourselves, and it's not. Our healing comes from within.
Yeah. It does. It's amazing, everybody, how we can move through our lives and miss the healing tools that the universe has given us through our bodies that will make up a self-love and a self-care toolkit that could be used for any emotion that is disrupting your experience. And grief is one of those disruptors. And I believe everything is here for our highest good to help us grow. And asking the question is like, what is it that you want me to know, feel, think, say, and do? What good am I missing here? What's my next best step? And those are questions that I learned to formulate through the teachings of one of my teachers, Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith with Agape in Los Angeles. And over the years of using his framework and making it my own, and taking my authority and standing in my grief, I have shifted my relationship with grief. It's no longer a relationship of resistance and running. There are moments where I'm like, what the fuck? My response time is greater now when I do have the triggering of a resistance thought or feeling or words that come out. I'm able to move into a receptive mode. It doesn't mean that I'm running towards it and going, I love you, welcome. But it does mean that I recognize that it's a red flag for me to deepen my self-love. I know that it's a red flag for me to pay attention. Pay attention. There's something that is seeking your attention that you're not getting. And there's something greater here and on the other side of it. And I'm always, I consider myself a student of life and a continuous learner. And I'm always looking for ways to grow, always. I'm a seeker, if you will. Always, that's part of me. And so I want to turn the conversation in our last couple of minutes. It's about 10 more minutes left in the conversation. I want to turn it to these amazing self-care, self-love tools that you created. Laura has written Tapestries of Grief and also My Life's Tapestry. And so tell us about each book and what it can do for you and where people can find it.
Okay, so My Life's Tapestry came first. Yep, that's it. You have like a limited edition version there because the cover's changed. That's going to be worth something one day. Keep it.
It's already worth something, baby.
Absolutely. Thank you. That is, oh gosh, where do I even start? It's a beautiful gift for anybody. I personally, maybe I'm a bit biased, but I think that every person should have this book and should have to complete this book. So it is a workbook, and it is designed primarily for people of the African, Caribbean, African American, for those that made that journey. Yeah. What I found is that many of our families, when our elders pass away, our families tend to disintegrate. There is so much conflict that comes to the surface when a loved one passes away. So the intention of My Life's Tapestry is that we work together to look at the family tree, to look at our beliefs and our ideas of what's true and what's right and what's real. What are our traditions and our rituals? This book is generic. The book can be used by anybody on earth at any time. But through this book, we also talk about the possessions. We talk about who's getting what. We close accounts. We talk about, whether there has been a will that's written, where the funeral plan is, so that those who are left behind can pick up the book and carry on with the information that's there. This book serves as a gift for the family. And it allows the family to then speak to the medical professionals to say, Mum has said she'd like to pass away at home. Mum has said she doesn't want to be force-fed. Dad has said he doesn't want to be resuscitated. Or Grandma has said she wants candles burning, she wants incense, she wants drummers, she wants to hear traditional music, she wants people singing, Granddad has said that Auntie Pusey can't come. But it's just all these things, and there's stories and there's meaning behind, the kind of care that we want to experience. So it's all listed. It's all there in the book for the family to work through, or for a tapestry guide that I am creating an army of, so that we can actually go and work with people to complete their books. And that journey then would also enable the guide to be there when the person makes their transition. Tapestries of Grief is the book that helps us to understand grief, to define it, and then to work with it, to recognize the ways in which it affects all of our lives, on the social, emotional, practical, spiritual, mental, and also within our working lives as well. Because I don't know about America, but over here, there is no rule for how long you can take off work. They want you back within 2 days.
Yeah, it's similar. It's similar.
Right.
Unless you have a compassionate, employer.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen in my work environment a few times, but not often.
Yeah. Right. You can take sick leave. You could take annual leave. You could take unpaid leave. Mm-hmm. You can get the sack. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you can afford it, you can take a career break. Mm-hmm. But there is no allowance for grief in the workplace. And so Tapestries of Grief, again, is a workbook that can be worked through, in groups of people and in families. But for me, it's more for the workplace. It's more for the corporate world. It's more to say, this is how we grieve. Again, the book is generic, but I do speak there about generational grief and how it's carried through the generations and how it affects us today. So we have the transatlantic slave industry that took place. How is that still affecting us today? Well, just like how it affects those descendants from Nazi Germany, it affects those Jewish people whose ascendants were caught up in that. And likewise for us, over the 400 plus years, it will affect us. It will play out. And it's still in motion. So the ways in which we are curtailed as a people also affect us. So I've spoken about all the different ways that grief is held in our bodies like ticking time bombs. And when somebody we love passes away, if we're not able to deal with that in the way that's natural to us, bang, it will go off. Yeah. And so there will be instances that occur that can then be publicly scrutinized, and then we're demonized yet again. We just needed somebody to talk to. We just needed somebody to listen to us. And I strongly believe that grief is at the root of every action that manifests in a negative, that just came up to be healed, but was unrecognized. So I also speak about spirituality quite heavily in that book as well. I don't know if you've gotten to that bit.
No.
And then I speak about the new children that are hitting the earth as well, because these people, they're different. These, babies that have been born since 2020, what is their purpose on earth? Because we are in a time of transition. And when somebody passes away, they've made that transition, but we are still going through a transition as well. And that's what's to be recognized. It's to be given space. It's to be overstood and nurtured.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And I do want to talk about dippism because for those that are looking right now, your interest is peaked and you want to find Laura online. Laura, tell them your website and then tell us about dippism.
Certainly. So the website is www.dippism.com. Dippism, D-I-P, stands for Death in Practice. So just as you have a doctor who is a GP, who's a general practitioner, I am a death practitioner. Every aspect of dying, death and grief I deal with. If somebody is making that death transition, I will be there by your bedside with your family, regardless of where that transition takes place, and ensure that you have everything that you wanted in place, because it's all about you and everybody's supposed to listen and respect your wishes. So death in practice. It is a practice because every life is completely different. We are all unique. And so each experience is to be handled in its own merit. We can't just lump it all together as one. We're not. So that's death in practice. The ism is a way of life. Death is part of life. And that's what my father said to me 2 months before he passed away. My cousin was killed in a car accident, and I went and I said to my dad, Curtis is gone. And he was like, Laura, death is part of life. And 2 months to that day, he was gone. And it's one of those things that you recognize. We're all here. We all live. And so there will be a time when we won't be. But how are we dying? Can it be done properly? Can it be done better? Yes. I believe that the way that we die is not in accordance with how we are supposed to be making that transition. Is a very important, the most important transition of our lives. It needs to be handled properly. We are sacred. Our bodies are sacred. And so when we hand our bodies over to people who are maybe not from the same culture as us, how can we expect them to respect our bodies? And so in the UK, and I know this isn't the situation in America, but in the UK, we are handing our bodies over to people who may not necessarily respect us. We don't know what's happening to that body when those doors are closed. And it doesn't have to be like that. So the work that I'm doing on a larger level is very much a matter of building a group, an army of people who can do that work. And so I created FACFO, which is the Federation of African and Caribbean Funeral Operatives. And I'm looking for people up and down the country who are doing end-of-life work, getting them all together in a directory so that when somebody we love dies, we can go there and say, right, here's somebody in our area. And where we are lacking in certain areas, I have a team of amazing people who are ready and able to start training us up to do that work. We're talking about generational income for our future generations to come. You know, training up our youths so that they will always have an income, so that they will always be of service, and that we can keep our rituals and traditions alive. And that work is global, because I've been approached by people in many different countries as well who are saying, can we work with you? So, yeah.
I'll give thanks. Give thanks. I am so grateful for this time.